Welcome to another broadcast of We're All Here Together. I started this one already, but I got in my way. So we're resetting. And the topic that I heard prior, let's see if that's still true. What do we want to talk about today? What's here to say? Have fun. Okay. What else? What direction should we take this? Okay, let's talk about the inner child. So the inner child usually is referred to when we're discussing wounding and healing. And so the inner child comes into the conversation as the part of you that's been broken or shamed or needs to be rehabilitated. The inner child, and my friend Dwayne Hartman pointed this out to me, is also the part of you that holds imagination, limitlessness, enthusiasm, excitement, what is uniquely sparkly to you. And when we're looking at fun, it's so wild. The mind, via cultural conditioning, has ascribed certain characteristics to success. If you're successful, you're serious. If you're successful, you wear a very well-tailored, tidy suit. If you're, and it's not to say that those things aren't success. It's just saying they are not all that success is and can be. And fun, levity, which is what I talked about last time, uniqueness, strangeness, etc. Those are all characteristic of feeling alive, which to me is the ultimate success point. When we are pursuing external accomplishments, sometimes the accomplishment is really a genuine expression of ourselves. I've created this book. I've led this group. I've studied this craft. I ran this thing. Like sometimes they come from within. And sometimes we think that by grabbing the thing externally and pulling it towards us or pulling ourselves towards it, that there's something that will get or change about our relationship to ourself. And the relationship to yourself is trippy because yourself is always whole. Isn't that beautiful? You are always whole. What you are healing, what you are correcting are the ideas that you're not. All along your journey from bean sprout to beanstalk, boo, you're good. That's right, this right, this right, this right. Oh, storm knocked you down, regrowth, that's right, that's right. You are never not you. Yourself is always whole. What we are healing, what we're correcting are your ideas that you're not. And sometimes achievement, both externally, like I'm describing, where it's like, okay, let me get this title, let me get this dollar, let me get this whatever. That achievement type thinking can also be copied and pasted when we start to explore our inner world. When I transcend this trauma, when I become more confident, when I. And what we think we're doing in chasing those external or internal achievements is to come to a self that will then respect, that will then love, that will then think is good enough. Isn't that crazy? So you're driving around in your car looking for your car, miserable because you can't find it. That is the journey. The journey is really to wake up, to see that you are always have always been, will always be in your car, in your wholeness, in yourself. And what is expanding that further, the waking up, which is kind of like a popularized term that now has shade associated with it because #woke, but waking up also recognizes or allows that everybody similarly is of God. We're all it's a vehicle within a vehicle that contains all the other vehicles, and we are here. There's nowhere to go but here, and here progresses, just like I was saying with the beanstalk, bean sprout to beanstalk. And I don't even really know if beanstalks come from bean sprouts, but those were the words that came to me. And I was talking about, what was I talking about? At the beginning I said about having fun. Our ideas, what we're reaching for, what we think we need to accomplish, become, do, change, etc., to have a healthy relationship to ourselves, to think finally, I can relax, I'm enough, I can let my hair down, I can let people see my bruises, my dirty spots, etc., I'm enough. We think that we need certain, almost like badges. You get like your little Girl Scout sash, and it's like, I have my badge that I suffered this much in this relationship. Now I'm worthy of love. I have my badge of like, what did I do? I ate healthy all week, like now I'm good enough. It doesn't really matter what you think the activity is. You're still likely, until you have a certain relationship to yourself and or the area hasn't been interrupted, you're still likely chasing things to be like, okay, now I can be at peace. Now I can sit in this room completely open to the experience that I'm having, because I'm not thinking about myself. I'm not thinking, what does this mean to me, for me, who do I have to be? You are open to experience. Hey guys, hey. And so I opened today saying, what are we talking about? We're going to talk about fun. I was saying that fun is not usually associated with those pursuits that are supposed to elevate the self to be good enough, because you have to be serious. And yet, when you look at areas of your life where you are successful, there can be an effortlessness to it. A child in play can be very creative, very productive, very, focused, intentional, having a lot of fun while there is a state that we think that can't be associated with other things, because maybe it wasn't on TNT when you were growing up. It wasn't that on television. It wasn't that at the movies. And yet there is a wisdom to it, an intelligence to that. And I think a lot of, I'll just go with it, I'll roll with it. I think a lot of what people are experiencing in corporate culture is feeling like it's soulless. Yeah, it is in many places, in many ways, because it has stripped a lot of emotion from it. It has stripped a lot of individuality, a lot of flow, a lot of things to be productive. And yet, ultimately, that's not productive, because the human resources within become strained and burn out and resistant. So, let's see. Let's relax a little, breathe. How's everybody doing today? Does anybody have any topics on their mind, anything they want to cover? I'm intending to practice. I'm just going to let her open and rip. So I started by talking about fun and saying, like, it's okay to have fun. You only think that you shouldn't because you've associated success with different states. To me, success is aliveness. Success is being able to be present without having the veil of the self that you're always looking through, like the glasses of like, are they going to see I'm not good enough? Do you know that you're looking in that way? Probably not. Probably not. The mind is super subtle and sneaky. You will hear instead, I can't believe they're wearing that. I'm pissed they did this. I'm sad about. You will not very directly hear your problem. There are layers and layers and layers. How did I come to hear my problems? I spent the last several years real quiet by myself. Just real quiet, real still, no stimulation. Every time I try to run off and distract myself, I bring myself back. Hey, we're not going to snack here. We're not going to look at social media. Let's just be. And it reveals itself to you. You will see yourself if you make space to see yourself. And what was so trippy, oh my God, it blew my fucking mind. I thought that what I would see I wouldn't like, and so I got like pretty close. It's almost like when I'm walking somewhere and I'm on the phone with like my mom. I'll get to the location, but I'm not ready to go in because I'm still talking to her, so I'll kind of like loop the block. So I got pretty much to like the core of myself, and I was like, well, I can't go in there. Oh God, like I don't want to see what's there. So I just kind of like looped the block for a while, made some more messes. I'll be busy over here so I don't have to see that. You know what's inside? Oh my God, it's glorious. There's nothing to be afraid of. There is nothing to be afraid of. And I think it's just our culture creates these frames of comparison and judgment around progress, around productivity, around just basic concepts of our identity, mother, woman, a lot like age, all of these things. And so we're constantly feeling like we're not enough, we're not right. You should feel shame, you should feel guilt, you did that wrong. We're alive. Oh my God, we're alive in a world that has never been before. For keeping things simple and on the ground. Also, I forgot I was washing dishes. Oops, that doesn't fucks with my audio. And so nobody actually knows how or who they're supposed to be. They have not. And yet those ideas all the time are just pushing, be more, be different, hide that, act like this, until it suppresses what is natural to you, that inner child. So earlier in the conversation, I talked about the inner child. I mentioned that the inner child is usually referenced from the healing standpoint, the part that's wounded, the part that didn't get love when you were, younger. The inner child is also your fucking boss. That is that is the glowing piece inside of you that knows. That's the part of you that hasn't been trained out of saying no to things it doesn't like, hasn't been trained to focus on stuff it thinks is stupid. Like, it is the part of you that is you, that glows, that knows, and it has imagination. So a lot of the work I've done and what I share is around the limits of thinking, the limits of the mind. You will make yourself crazy. Oh, okay. Actually, one of my friends posted this, I've seen it a couple times now, but last night was the first time I had seen it, about the AI godfather guy retiring from Google to warn the people. And it's difficult. I don't interact with anything mainstream media because it is sensationalized in a way that stimulates fear, so that people buy, so that people read, etc. It's so, I don't touch it for those reasons. I don't feel respected as a consumer, so I'm good. If you want to piano play me, that's fine, but no, I'm not going to participate. So is this legit? Is this legit information? I don't know. I went to the source, supposedly the New York Times. I read what was written. Is that what was said? You never know. But what really stood out to me was, his concern is the misinformation that will be available to the public, to the mass public. And that is fake pictures, articles. You can pretty well synthesize anything at this point. And so a person, a consumer, an information consumer, goes onto the internet, and that is, for most people, the source of information. They're like, what is this? Google, check it. What if when you Google now, all of the results that return, you have no idea if it is legit or not legit? What becomes your information source then? Who is your authority then? Where do you verify? Where do you get your blue check on your information? Is it somebody who's paid to verify on a social media platform? Somebody with a vested interest? I mean this with the utmost love, but I don't fucks with any of it. And I think that there are incredible, brilliant people a part of all of those organizations and systems. But I also think that there's a lot of momentum in how business is done and how things are happening and the direction that they're going that I'm personally not aligned with. I don't feel that it supports me as a consumer. I think that there is money involved. People do weird stuff for money. They do. It's associated with survival right now. And when you play with people's survival buttons, they'll do weird things. It's really easy to get lost in that.
that topic is being discussed abroad as well. Here in Mexico, government just started bringing out the 2030 global agenda. Can you say more about what the 2030 global agenda is? How do you know what the community actually feels and thinks? Thanks, Jeremiah. Yeah, it's so... Jeremiah, when you say the community, do you mean on the internet, or what? Can you say, you mean what they're presenting in media? Yeah, it's, I was talking about, I started running in the direction of saying, like, I don't fucks with any of it. Oh, Trav, I didn't know you were over there, buddy. Hey. Oh, this is exciting. All right. I was saying, like, I don't fucks with any of it because when money is involved and there's a little, like, and money's not bad. It's not bad at all. There's nothing that's bad. There's nothing that's bad. It's always how you're interacting with it. What's your relationship to it? What's your relationship to yourself? What's your relationship to the whole? And like I said, there's just some momentum in some of these systems and some of these practices that have lost touch with the heart, not really recognizing the impact that they're having, what they're really doing on themselves or others. And again, like, incredible people, well, the best intentions, really brilliant work. But as a whole, like, the impact, in many ways, the impact isn't quite what I think is intended. Just humans as a whole. Yeah, I think humans as a whole are good. I love people. I love people. I think they're great. If you're approaching somebody with heart, generally that's what you get. And if that's not there, and you don't need to play, like, you don't need to go there. You don't need to be their friend. It covers AI and a social transformation with technology. Yeah, I guess with AI, and so I opened that by saying, like, how do you know it's true then? If everything can be, like, if everything's like, how do you sort through information? That's why it's important to have a relationship with yourself. One, because there is no absolute correct information. Even in science, and, like, this is one of my other main talking points, science is always moving. It's only what's known thus far. Yes, you need to have, as best you can, a verifiable kind of, like, ground frame, and then a system to allow the frame to move, because otherwise it's just friggin' chaos. I played in that for a while. I'm grateful for reason. I'm grateful for logic. I'm grateful for this framework, and yet I also appreciate that there is something that exists beyond that. There are always things that are unknown. You do not know what you don't know, and you can't prove anything true. You can only prove it false and then imply that something is true. And so I was saying that, like, how do you... The Amero is described by George Ard. North American Union will introduce a new currency. The Amero, as described by George Orwell, will be the new currency. Yep. Yeah, it's creepy, man. And, like, unfortunately, unless you're really kind of connected to yourself, it seems like a good idea. There are things, and it seems like a good idea because the context that some of these things are presented in creates the structure with which you evaluate things. And so you don't notice you're a part of a conversation. It's almost like arguing between 2 points, not really sitting back and seeing, like, well, why are these 2 points here? And a lot of what we're presented through media, through even government communication, has that quality to it where it's like, hey, like, let's step back a little first and evaluate the merit of the conversation. And this isn't conspiracy. This is human nature, one. And two, it's very plain when you've spent a lot of time with language. Slow and painless. Well, I guess I am wearing all black today. I didn't know we were going to go here, but here we are. So anyhow, okay, great. I'll pivot this way. So I opened today and I was like, what's important? Fun is important. Why is fun important? Because honestly, if you take things at the full weight, they're too heavy to carry. You have to be a little, like, light with your touch, because otherwise you're disabled. When I started to explore some of the things that were, like, hidden in culture, I was so bummed. It took me out of the game. I didn't know what to do, how to do it. Like,
I was really bummed. Feeling that way made me very ineffectual at doing anything about what I was finding. Because from my vantage point, when there is, there is something I'm talking about it as momentum. When that's happening, it's not, it's misperception. If people really knew who they were and what they were, they wouldn't behave that way. And also, I think it's important, like, the way that I kind of, like, transcended the like, oh man, bummer, into joy is by appreciating and finding the aspects within myself that would behave similarly in those circumstances. So, the moving, trading places, it's not crazy, it's human nature. So when you come to see, feel, meet your own human nature, like the enemy is within, does that mean that there aren't people outside doing weird shit? No. At the same time, like, you need to come emotionally to the other side of it, at least what worked for me, was to appreciate, like, I have that within me. If I wanted to roll that way, I could roll that way. I'm not, for one reason or another. They've got they're under greater density than me, meaning they're not able to see the light or feel their heart as much, so they're behaving that way. Do I need to make them bad guys? No. Does it serve me to make them bad guys? No. Does it serve for me to act like it's okay? No. It's yes, and you take what is, accept it as a misperception, and as best you can, try to roll it forward toward the light. Biden signed that on January 10th. Wikipedia listed as a conspiracy theory, while WhiteHouse.gov clearly has it outlined on their website. Contradictory statements. While most things cataloged as conspiracy theories come out as fact years later, the labels help to distract people by them sometimes. You guys should be friends. If you're not friends, I hope you're friends. Oh, Dwayne, I mentioned you earlier. I talked about your inner child thing. Okay, so I opened today and was talking about, can it be fun? And then somehow we started to move towards, how do we move towards? Oh, I brought up that it's important to be connected to yourself and be able to assert for yourself what is true, because information is about to get wild. So unless you're your own authority, like, who is? And again, it's please be kind to yourself in the reclaiming of your authority or authorityship, because you likely didn't know you didn't have it. So I didn't know. You don't know till you know. And that is why, to me, self-love is like the ultimate remedy, because if you are critical of what you don't, if you're critical of yourself, you are, and critical doesn't mean, like, you can still see, like, this is different than this, like, yellow and pink are different, but you don't have to make yellow bad for pink to be preferable right now. Pink is preferable right now. If you didn't have pink back then, like, okay, like, why beat yourself up about it? Or maybe you had pink, but you were afraid to use it, like, whatever, if pink is now, like, let that be. And so, to me, self-love is saying, like, that's okay, I used yellow. That's okay, I'm going to try to use pink now. When you start to make it about I'm a bad person, or you start to tell stories about what you were doing, or you could have done, or you didn't do, you know what you're doing? You're not using the pink because you're fucking busy with the other stuff. So self-love to me is just very effective in saying, like, I appreciate that this was the best I could do. This is what I was doing. And even if I think that it wasn't the best I was doing, it must have been, because that's what was. Self-love to me is saying, like, what is now? What is now? What can be done now? And it's not about making, there need not be a story. And I say that after writing, like, a bunch of them. Writing, reading, telling, singing. God knows I've done it all with, and I don't know if that's true, so let's not bring that out. But I spent a lot of time with this, because I was like, oh, people saw me use yellow. I'm so bad. No, I fucking use yellow. And now it's here. This is self-love. It's the best way I can teach it. So self-love, again, I got into that by saying, like, if you don't have your own authority over yourself, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. If you're not sure, if you're not able yet to be like, okay, this is what's true for me, it's process. It takes time, but it does seem worthwhile to explore that now, especially given the changing landscape on information that's available. It's really, like, for me, it's a sensation of resonance. I don't need to be right for anybody else. I don't need to be right at any other time in my life. Again, like, what was right is relative. I'm allowed and empower myself to select what is correct for me right now, and I'm willing to be wrong. But I also have to be willing to claim something. And so that is like being your own authority. That's saying, like, this is good for me, this is not good for me. I want to eat that, I don't want to eat that. The doctor said I should have avocado, it makes my stomach hurt. Like, who is your, where are you getting your information? And as far as I can tell, like, you can get it direct. It's being willing to explore what you've naturally, that inner child, what I was referencing from Dwayne was, the inner child's wise. It knows. There's an intuition there, an instinct. And over time, it just kind of gets washed off, washed out, beat down, like rolled out, made into these like crepes rather than whatever it was to begin with. And that doesn't matter. Like, you can as much as you want, and maybe you need to be mad about that process. You might have some things to feel. I did. Did I need to? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I did it. That access point is always there. Earlier in the presentation today, I was saying, like, you are always whole. You ain't gotta fix shit. Like, you are whole. What you are fixing, correcting, is your relationship, what you think about as whole, where you find your wholeness. Like, how are you defining what is whole? Like, that is what you're correcting. Whole is always there. It's just the stuff around it that we're looking at and saying, like, no. And the other, how do you get there? You kind of drop into your heart, you practice. It does seem like there is a naturalness, like the being will fix itself whenever you stop poking at it. It's like if you have a wound and you're always like, oh, it won't do it. But, similarly with the mind, what I found after years of being in there manually is if I relax and allow my being to take the lead and I say, like, oh, I see that is, don't really like it. Could be a state externally, could be a condition internally. For me, with my sensitivity, sometimes it's a little overwhelming, man. Sometimes, being able to feel the illusion of reality, being able to know that I exist in other times and places simultaneously, like, it can be a lot. And so what I started to do was just ask my being to make an interface that's functional and comfortable for me. I don't want to lose that access. I really like it. I think there's value to it. Not sure wholly what yet, but I like it. And yet I want to be pointed here. I want to have a full focus point here from which I can act functionally, where I can have, sustainable, healthy environment, a whole experience. And so I just sort of give it to my being. Hey buddy, this is the direction I want to go. We do some stuff, other things fall out or happen, and I say, okay, this way. And a lot of it seems to correct itself. It's beautiful. So I'm not sure if I'm going to post this one yet or not. If you've been following this series, the rest are on youtube.com/theshaylee show, or if you haven't, I also have Let's Be Real About Healing and Let's Be Real, and that's about healing. And so in that one, I simplify the healing process to basically, like, what can you do so you don't get lost, and how can you make it easier and more fun and lighter. And those are my notes from my own sort of process, notes that I get directly, and also what I've seen and applying both of those things with clients over the last several years. And, like, it works. Maybe not for everybody, but I'm doing my best. Like, I'm doing my best to make it as simple as possible, because the complexity is something, and this is what Dwayne and I have talked about on his podcast a couple of times. The complexity is really just like an ego trip. Let me show you how smart I am. Let's make this it's really simple. I'm sorry, it is. Like, the whole journey, like I said at the beginning, is coming to a place where you recognize you've always been there. That's it. That's where you're going. Everybody can have that experience different ways. That's part of the adventure. Like, enjoy it. it's great. How cool. How cool that you're having your own experience. How cool you don't know where it's going to go and you're not totally in control. Like, isn't that fun? Isn't that kind of exciting? All right, well, I really appreciate everybody coming out to this. I hope you all have a beautiful day. If you are interested in having one-to-one support, I offer kind of like uniquely channeled guidance, and I create tools, and it can make it a little easier to work with your stuff when you have someone from the outside verify what's there. So when I was talking about being an authority earlier, being an authority for yourself doesn't mean that you don't have external support. It doesn't mean that you're operating in a vacuum. It means that you have the authority to accept or reject the information that they're providing. But it can be super incredibly helpful to have someone look at how you're looking, because you can't see how you see. You cannot see the very foundational pieces of yourself, because you are built on top of them. Everything you're doing is coming from beyond that point. You can only see out front of yourself. And so we want to come back. Thanks, guys. Thank you. We want, it's super helpful to have somebody that you trust put on the table in front of you things that you might not be able to see, and you will feel if it's true for you, and you will feel if somebody's trying to push their reality onto you. You will feel if it's you or not. And if you want to learn how to feel for yourself, you can talk to me about that too. All right, everyone, have a beautiful day. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.